In this lecture, we will briefly present the research we are conducting in our project, The Religious Experience of Children with Autism Spectrum Disorder, that is funded by St. Andrews University, Scotland and John Templeton Foundation. So in the first part of the presentation, we will show you some relationship between religiosity and autism. In the second part, we will analyze certain contemporary theoretical frameworks. And in conclusion, we will bring a synthesis and offer arguments in favor of understanding religiosity as a real and positive phenomenon for autistic people, but also for the wider community. So please experiences. So example 1. When the World Trade Center towers came down, I went to bed horrified, fearful. Then I remembered that Stephen had not said his prayers. My son was only 9 years old at the time. He said all of his usuals about blessings and family. Then he asked God to forgive Osama bin Laden for killing people. I was speechless. And so on. Example 2. My belief in the existence of a supreme intelligence is based on scientific factors. I have not, as so many people do, gotten any solace or comfort from my religion, nor have I ever sought any. My religious faith, I guess I could say, is not a gift from God, as so many people say. It is a gift I gave to myself. And so on. The only thing that has deeply moved me is the reasonableness of it all. Example 3. He had spoken to me as a father. He was dying and his spirit was going to fly. I was glad for him. He would be free. I said goodbye to him and thanked God for the gift of a death that lets one say one's goodbyes and make peace. And so on. Now, each of these descriptions offers an insight into a personal life experience with a supernatural agent. Specific about them is that they belong to persons with autism. So first person is a high-functioning autistic boy. Second one is high-functioning mathematician Edgar Schneider, while the third one is also high-functioning autistic writer Donna Williams. Often referred to as autistic disorder, infantile autism, and so on, autism spectrum disorder is a complex neurodevelopmental disorder identified by deficits in social communication and interactions and restricted repetitive patterns of behaviors or interests. So some 35 years ago, autism was considered a rare occurrence. But today, for instance, in USA, we know that 1 child out of 40 is considered autistic. Now, this new understanding of prevalence of autism poses challenges for societies, but also for theology. There have been certain efforts by scholars within the practical and disability theology to understand disability as such. The need to develop theological understanding of autism was also recognized, but it is still an under-researched area. Models of pastoral care developed especially for children with ASD are almost non-existing. Now, given the autism tsunami, if we want to understand the relationship and influence between religiosity and autism, we must make an interdisciplinary effort, which includes the collaboration of theology and empirical sciences, with special emphasis in this lecture and in our research will be given to cognitive sciences, especially to the branch of cognitive sciences of religion. Now, just to show a quick overview, what is CSR, or cognitive science of religion? So it is a scientific discipline that aims to explore religious beliefs and practices, viewing them usually as byproducts of regular processes of human cognition. Now, CSR holds that religious beliefs are in some way reflections of our cognitive abilities. So religion and all forms of its manifestation can only be posited as a natural fact that can be explained by empirical research. Now, one of the mechanisms that CSR takes into account is the theory of mind. Now, this theory tries to explain our capacity to grasp other people's states of mind, their beliefs, emotions, and intentions, or to put how we put ourselves into other person's shoes. Now, this enables the theory of mind, enables us to interact with others in the world. This mechanism is also considered fundamental for attributing agency and intentionality to spirits, gods, and other invisible entities. And now, what's the issue with this? In the field of CSR, prevalent is a theory that claims how people with autism spectrum disorder, because of their cognitive challenges, are most likely to be agnostics or atheists. Namely, according to Baron Cohen, it is considered that the absence of the theory of mind in autists could underline their social, communicative, and imaginative abnormalities. Therefore, autists should also have problems in developing relationships to supernatural agents. For example, just to name a couple of representatives, Bering stated that since people with autism are impaired in communication with other people, then they would likely also have problems to perceive agency and teleological meaning behind events. Similarly, Jeffrey Boyd, building on the broken mirror hypothesis of autism, mirror here stands for mirroring others as a problem of neural nature. Now, Boyd understands theory of mind as unavoidable and necessary for building human-to-human relationships, but also human-to-God relations, for him even in heaven. But nevertheless, there has been a turn in theory on the horizon. Namely, there are scholars who are empirically testing an opposing theory, claiming that not only autists can be religious, but it appears that they have more inclinations towards supernatural than neurotypicals, also indicating a positive impact of spirituality on their well-being. So the neuroempirical testings of CSR hypothesis, how deficit in theory of mind limits relations to supernatural agency, did not obtain results that would support the hypothesis. So when compared with the older studies, we now see that the newer ones were provided with better understanding of mentalizing as such and a broader variety of measurements. Now here are just a few conclusions from new studies. No significant mentalizing differences observed between autistic and non-autistic examples in performance-based measurements or evidence of differences in religious beliefs, prayers, or evidence or attendance at religious services or felt closeness to God. They also noted that cultural learning and parenting is recognized as a strong determinant of one personal religious beliefs. Now, this is important to notice when we are speaking about religious education and development. Further on, in direct conversations, neurotypicals can gain great deal of information from body gestures or face expressions, while autists cannot read or they cannot synchronize all that information, although they are apt to sensing emotions. Now, supernatural beings don't have bodies, so interactions with them is unrestricted by multisensory input such as body language, facial expression, and intonation. So according to Ingela Vizuri's research, such realms for autists are therefore optimal. Since communication with supernatural beings is not loaded with embodied complexities, autists have time to figure out the meaning of the situation, unlike in face-to-face communication where information runs fast and changes. Let us also note that autistic children and teenagers often have imaginary friends, compensating and complementing real-life interaction in this way. It is presumed by scholars that this imaginative play helps them to organize certain insights about different agents, including God. In this way, we could say that relation with the divine is also helping them to compensate real-life interaction. Eggblad and Oviedo, that we heard today, had also a study where they observed autistic children who were raised in religious families and or educated in religious schools. And they have showed how they overcome their difficulties through other specific ways, perhaps building some particular religious structure or code. For Eggblad and Oviedo, the most important insight that they gain is that the social or culture environment becomes the decisive factor leading to more or less religious attitudes and ideas. They concluded how developmental and social cultural variables became more important than just innate cognitive features when predicting religious outcomes in these cases. Now, important to notice is that people with autism often hesitate to speak about their religious experience and think it is better for them to be quiet about it, especially in secularized countries. As one of the subjects in studies testified that if you are already labeled as autistic, you don't want people to find out that you are also religious, because then people may think that you are really crazy, end of quote. In addition to all these empirical studies, there is also a growing body of autistic testimonies, either in first or third person perspective. Now, William Stillman, who has Asperger's syndrome, throughout his work with autistic people, encountered many different autistic religious experiences, describing them as a special spiritual connections. Experiences varied from visions of grandparents and other loved ones in spirit to communication with angels. Importantly, Stillman claims that it is not uncommon for young autistics to have suicidal thoughts, but a strong spiritual support can be a source for combating these dark moments. On the other hand, Olga Bogdashina, in her study on autistic spirituality, writes that most reported features are experiencing true self, or simply being, out-of-body experiences, visions, appreciation of nature, connectedness, empathy to people, and so on. And in concluding remarks, interdisciplinary scientific research on the impact of religiosity and spirituality on neurotypicals is relatively well present and encouraged. However, the same cannot be said for the research in the field of neurodiversity. Thanks to recent but rare research, we have seen that the theory claiming how autistic people are mostly atheists or agnostics has been shaken. Further contributing to this is also an increasing number of personal testimonies of religious experience. But with fundaments for a new theory frame, we are also gaining evidence of the positive effects of spirituality on their well-being. It should be recalled that autism is a phenomenon of a broad spectral nature that includes individuals of different abilities and capabilities, but also that each person is special and also their social context. Given the above, we can conclude that a great effort before theology and the church is to remain open to the group of neurodiversity. This requires effort toward developing autistic-friendly frameworks like church spaces, educational approaches, pastoral approaches, and so on, based on scientific insights and personal testimonies that undoubtedly indicate the possibility of fruitful spiritual development of autistic individuals, at the same time also enriching the whole religious community. So thank you for your time.